Hi there to all your conquerors, and I hope you are having an amazing day. I don't know where in the world you are joining from, but I am in the normally sunny South Africa. Unfortunately, today it is quite overcast and cold. Um, but nevertheless, I must be honest. I love the country that I live in, and I'm very fortunate in that way. And thank you for joining me. And hopefully, you love the country that you are in, and you're having an amazing day so far. So, I was asked to do a Facebook Live, and my name is Chelsea Williamson. And just a little bit of a background story about me. I work for a company called iSchool Africa and Think Ahead as the inclusion and accessibility facilitator. Ultimately, what that means is I work within the special needs and inclusive schools in South Africa, across the country, giving them support through the use of technology, in particular the iPad, because we've seen how the iPad can truly empower children with and students with disabilities. So we take the technology with the help of sponsors and funders and partners into the schools and then train them on how to use the devices to empower the students, the teachers, the therapists, and everybody in that environment, ultimately creating more opportunities for students and empowering them later on in life and where they are in their education. And I'm very fortunate to say I love what I do. I'm one of those people that I wake up every morning excited about what I do. And I think it's because I know what I'm doing truly makes an impact. And the reason that I know that is it stems from a very personal place. At the age of 9, I was diagnosed with a whole host of learning disabilities myself. I went to an inclusive school, um, and I was very fortunate, and I count myself very lucky. And I acknowledge my privilege in my journey because, especially in the country that I'm living in, I can see how the the benefits that I had from the inclusive education, which I got overseas, not everybody has access to. And it's made me even more passionate and even more motivated to ensure that this empowerment that I received through technological interventions is available to everyone. And that's become my driving force, my passion. And I think, especially in this community, it's conquer like a girl. And I love that. And when you're talking about the field of disabilities, inclusion, and accessibility, it's quite scary because girls with disabilities are less likely to be diagnosed at a young age because the signs are less noticeable in girls than they are in guys. And I was very fortunate in that they caught everything at a very young age. So I had interventions from the age of 9 onwards. In fact, it was my 9th birthday. Happy birthday. um, but I was very fortunate with my interventions, but this doesn't happen for most girls. Most girls with learning disabilities, neurodiverse disabilities, or these invisible disabilities, they only caught much later on in life. And as a result, they have to struggle basically there until they are whatever they are struggling or whatever they're battling with is finally caught, and then they can take the appropriate measures. And it's really scary to know that because it puts girls at a disadvantage from day one. And we know girls, there's a whole stigma around women and women in the workplace, and it's a big battle that we're facing with. But when we look at statistics that say there are 1 billion individuals in the world with a disability, that's 1 in every 7 people you will ever meet, or in a room, 1 in every 7 individuals will have a disability, whether it's invisible or visible. So when we're talking about visible disabilities, we're talking about someone who's got a hearing aid. You can see they've got a hearing aid. Okay, they're hard of hearing or they're deaf. Someone who's blind might have a guide dog or a cane with them. Someone with a physical disability, you'll look at them and be able to see that they have a disability. Whereas disabilities such as my own are invisible disabilities. You don't look at me and go, oh, she has a disability. She is on the spectrum. She has a learning disability. She will struggle to read and write. You don't look at me and know that. So these invisible disabilities are they are less likely to be caught, to be seen, to be noticed. However, 1 in every 7 individual has some form of disability, which is a scary statistic, especially when we're looking at the world as a whole, knowing there are so many individuals, 1 billion people in the world have a disability. And then that brings in the question, are we catering for everyone? Are we making our content accessible to everyone, inclusive to everyone, considering that there are 7 billion people in the world and 1 billion of them have some form of a disability? So considering the fact that Conquer Like a Girl is a Facebook group, I want to touch on some very simple tips on how you can create accessible content to ensure that you are catering for these 1 billion individuals. And the first one is when we're posting on social media and on Facebook groups, Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, all these social media platforms, the first very simple tool that you can use is alt text. Now, anybody that has ever used SEO with their social media or with website building or development in any form, you will know about alt text. In fact, most times people get told about alt text to improve their SEO. However, alt text's original function or main function is actually for individuals who have low vision or are blind. And what this does is if you post an image on social media and you've added in alt text for that image, for example, when I posted earlier on, I posted the accessibility icon and I added alt text to that icon, meaning that if anybody who is low vision, partially sighted or blind saw that image, their screen reader, whether it's VoiceOver or JAWS or whatever screen reader they're using, will read that alt text aloud to them, describing that image. So that image all of a sudden isn't something that they can't see, that they don't have access to. They now have access to the social media content that's being put out there. They are able to access everything on an equitable basis. Yes, it will increase your SEO ranking. However, it will make that content available to somebody who might not be able to physically see that image. So that's the first tip. And Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, Instagram, they all have alt text as an option. Facebook, for example, when you post an image, just click edit. And when you click edit, you'll see down the side it says alternative text or alt text. Just type in a short description of that image, and all of a sudden, that image will be accessible to somebody new, to a new target audience. The second simple tip that you can use closed caption on your videos. So whether you're posting on all different types of social media platforms, in fact, Facebook Live even has an option that it can automatically generate closed captions for you when you're creating your videos. YouTube automatically adds subtitles and audio descriptions to the videos, which is amazing. And you can go and edit those. You can use apps like Clips. Clips is a free video editing app on your iPhone and your iPad, that when you record a video, it'll automatically generate subtitles if you activate the feature called Live Tiles. And that's just little things that creating closed caption all of a sudden makes your content accessible to individuals with learning disabilities, individuals with hearing disabilities, and it just opens up your target market so much more, making your content more accessible. In fact, a lot of statistics are showing that people now on social media, majority of people, whether they're hearing or non-hearing, they choose to have their sound off. So having subtitles embedded in your videos is allowing you to reach a bigger target audience, but also creating accessible content. And then the last one, the very, very last simple tip and trick that I want to do, not necessarily related to social media, but just as a whole, is if you're creating events, if you're having a summit or a webinar or anything like that, simply ask, when you ask people to register for your event, simply ask, do you need any accessibility support during this event? And you'll see all the events that I run, I always ask this question to make sure that if I do have an individual who's hard of hearing or deaf attending my event, that I'm able to cater for them, that the event will be accessible to them. I don't want to leave anybody behind. In fact, I want to make sure that everything that I do reaches absolutely everyone. And asking this question not only allows you to see who is actually engaging? Am I getting any individuals with disabilities engaging in my content? But then it allows you to go one step further and go, oh, wow, okay, I need to make sure that this content is available. And the simple accessible tools that you can use during webinars is closed captions. If you use Zoom, you just have to add an API key like otter.ai is a great API for Zoom. Google Meet automatically has automatically generated subtitles, which is great. And other webinar platforms generally have an option to add closed captions. So closed captions is one. The second one is having a sign language interpreter interpret your event. I personally use South African Sign Language interpreters at my events. I'm fluent in South African Sign Language myself, but I love just having that option available to the deaf and hard of hearing community, because I believe it's important. And then when using, for example, Zoom webinars also have audio descriptions for low vision and blind participants, which is great. So meaning that your webinar will be accessible to whoever attends. But simply asking that question allows you to open up doors to new opportunities, allows you to have new conversations and new discussions. Now, I know that you might be thinking, well, you know, what about me? It's too difficult, or it's too much work. Well, it's the way that the world is going, and that is a fact. And we can see the rise in the conversations around disability inclusion and accessibility. It's bigger than it's ever been before. So it's really important that we take this next step and have these conversations. And I also just want to say to everybody on the Conquer Like a Girl community, having conversations around disability and inclusion, they can often be difficult. And in fact, whenever I speak at conferences or webinars now with COVID, a lot of people, they'll say, well, I'm too scared. I don't know what to do when I meet a blind person. I don't know what to do when I'm in a room with a deaf person. I feel awkward. And let's just be honest with ourselves for a second. It can be awkward. But take that awkwardness, that concern, that frustration, and be brave and ask. Because when you engage in a conversation, you might not know what the outcome will be. And in fact, most of the people that I work with disabilities, including myself, I would prefer it if somebody came up and said, but why do you do that? How do you do that? Engage in those conversations. And if you're too scared to engage in those conversations, or you don't know where to start with engaging in those conversations, I encourage you, please reach out to me. I'll leave my email address in the comment section. So please feel free to engage with me, ask any questions. Don't be shy. The first step to creating accessible and inclusive environments, whether it's online or in person, is by engaging, asking those difficult questions. So I encourage you, engage and ask, and don't be shy. And that's all that I have to say for you today. And I really am excited to engage with more of you and hear from more of you. And just to let you know, I also have an iPad Accessibility Summit coming up soon on the 15th of October, where we're going to be joined with the likes of the director of Apple Accessibility, Sarah Herlinger, is going to be joining us, and some other Apple experts are going to be joining us. We're also going to be joined by the president of Gallaudet University, who is the only deaf president of the only deaf university in the world. And we're all going to be sharing on how the iPad can create accessible and inclusive education environments. So please feel free to attend that summit. I would love to have you there, and I would love to engage in more of these conversations. So I look forward to hearing you more and continuing this conversation on the Conquer Like a Girl community. So that's all from me, and I hope you have an amazing weekend and keep on conquering. Bye, community.